What is up, you guys? It's your girl Yinsu here from Upcomer, and we are back once again with another episode of Showstopper, a very, very special episode today. As always, I've got Tyler with me, and Tyler, I'm looking forward to this intro because we haven't had a European guest for a while.
Yes, Yinsu. If we're going to preview the EMEA qualifiers for Berlin, why not have a man who knows how to make it to a Masters event? Not only make it to a Masters event, Yinsu, but make it all the way to the grand final. Today we have Fnatic's Mini, the coach for the Fnatic Valorant team, the one that made it to the finals at the first international LAN at Reykjavik. How are you doing, man?
Very good, thank you. It's strange having myself introduced like that. I've never been. This is my first bit of media for a while. It's nice to get that recognition, you know.
Yeah, I'm a bit sad though, Tyler, because finalists at Reykjavik, but not gonna be present at Berlin. So
hey, it's not that bad. I mean, it's Valorant's tough. It's every single week, new teams, new players. It's absolutely insane. It's a hard mountain to keep top of, unless you're Sentinels. They're just they're goated. So
yeah, I mean, we will talk about that in due course. But first, of course, as always, the first segment, the one that you guys all love, roast my tier list. And this week, we've put together a tier list of every single participating team at the EMEA Challengers playoffs. So, Mini, let's take a look at Tyler's first.
My beautiful tier list. Let me explain. Is it exciting? Is it like a sexy like rendezvous in Spain? No, it's not. It's nothing exciting, but it's safe. It's like marrying the high school sweetheart and having 4 kids and just being very boring. Is it boring? Yes. Did I take the favorites and put them in S tier? Yes. Did I put all the other European teams plus the super team from Turkey in A tier? Yes. Did I put the second tier Turkey and Russian teams in B? Yes. Did I take the weakest teams from Russia and Turkey and put them in C tier? Yes. Is it boring? Yes. But is it practical? Is it logical? I say yes.
Well, Mini, what do you think? I think it's too safe, but what about you?
I think it's pretty safe. I think that there are a few things I'd change about it. I think Gambit are like, I don't want to say overrated, but I feel like they had a good run, right, during that last Iceland qualifier, but I think that's very little to go off of. I think the community's reaction to Gambit's mostly been about their practice results. They beat FPX, they look good beating FPX, but I don't think they're at that caliber where you can put them next to Acend.
My worry about Gambit is it feels like, and I talked about this a little early in your intro and all that, is it does feel like the deeper your region is, the faster these teams are going to improve, right? I feel like Europe is improving their rapid pace. NA is improving their rapid pace because their regions have so many, there's investment, there's so many good players. It seems like, it's when all these good teams are around, you're going to have to improve or you're going to get knocked off. Where Gambit are by far and away, there's no one close to them to the CIS region. So even though I think, yeah, as you said, in Iceland, they look like they are a top 4 team. They were 3rd place. They could be, a bit overrated just because they're in a region where they have nothing to really worry about. Where you look at Acend, G2, Guild, Fnatic, like you guys all are evolving at such a rapid pace because you have to, because Europe is such a deep region.
I mean, Mini, yeah. What do you think about, the fact of all of the European teams being in S and A? I can't massively disagree with it, but do you feel that way as well, Mini? Do you feel like all of the European teams are just leaps and bounds above the other ones, with the exception, of course, of Gambit in the S and then Supermassive in the A?
So I think that Europe is by far, in the EMEA region, Europe is by far the most stacked region. Like, it's not even close. We're not even top. You could say we're top heavy with Acend, but the depth is just there. Like, there's just too many good teams. I think CIS has an issue of top heaviness. They have Gambit, and I think below them, you're looking at teams that are decent and have decent tier 2 teams, but I don't think they're tier 1. I think with Turkey's getting interesting. I think before we had Oxygen, Footballist, and
BBL.
BBL. Now we have a bunch of very exciting teams to look at, but I think that's more like a breadth thing rather than like a depth thing. I think they don't have that leader right now, which could be Supermassive Blaze, because they look really good. They've got like an insane roster. They've got good coaching staff. That could be the roster we're looking at to kind of be the tier 1 team. But I think in Europe, there's just too much in every category. There's too many tier 1 teams. There's too many tier 2 teams.
And do you think that Supermassive Blaze in Tyler's tier list, they deserve to be, equal to those European teams he's put there? Or do you feel like that the European teams are still slightly better?
I think it's fair to put them alongside them as a prediction. It's going to be impossible to tell, though, because they've had Supermassive Blaze have had 1 or 2 qualifiers to prove themselves. They lost to a few Turkish teams during that time. They look pretty decent. They look like the best Turkish team, probably. But it's all dependent on how that translates into international play, I guess. Like, Europe is the best region, I think, and we're going to learn how they compete going forward. I think it's fair to put them alongside for now, but
Mini doesn't want to upset the Turkish fans.
No. Like the rest of the teams, like I think in general, like Europe is better. Like Turkey is probably, in terms of like if you had to select one team from each region, it would probably go Europe, then Russia, CIS, and then Turkey. If we had to choose like 5 teams from each region, Turkey might beat CIS.
I mean, there's just the popularity, right? There's so many people in Turkey playing Valorant versus the CIS region where it's I don't want to say it's dead, but it's conquered by CS. Nothing beats CS and Valve in Russia, Ukraine, and that kind of block over there. So I do think like Turkey, like Europe, is going to be improving just because there's so many players, so much investment going into that Turkish scene that I very well could see the Turkish scene by a year or 2 from now being above CIS, unless CIS gets that, if the Navi coming in really breeds more fandom and people wanting to play in that region.
Turkey going forward is like unbelievably stacked. Like I think over the next year, if they work out those structures with the players they've got, like they could be unbelievable. I think CIS has an issue with the amount of talent depth right now, but hopefully they find their simples and they can just find a couple of teams where they just dominate.
They need a 15-year-old to be like, I want to play Valorant over CS. Right now, like in NA, he's Finnish. Like we're talking about like
Russian. He's got Russian parents and he's born in Finland. He counts.
Okay, but I'm saying like right now, if you're a kid in the United States or Canada and you're 15 years old, you're playing Valorant. In Turkey, if you're a 15-year-old, you're playing Valorant over CS more than likely. In the CIS region, if you're the next simple, you're playing CSGO. You're not playing Valorant. And that's, I think what Minnie is saying is that you need that 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid with that talent to want to play Valorant over CS. And we'll see how that happens.
We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of those 15, 16-year-olds in Turkey.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a second because my list, as always, Tyler, looks a little bit different from yours.
Oh my God.
So let me explain myself, okay, Minnie? So, this is my list. I think Acend are the only S tier team for now in terms of what I'm personally sure of. I completely agree with you. I don't think we've seen enough Gambit. I don't think we've seen enough Supermassive. I don't even think we've seen enough, FPX. Like, we just haven't. So for me, I could not justify putting anybody next to Acend. I think Acend are just in a league of their own right now. Not by much, but they definitely are. And then into the A, I feel, your Gambit, your FPX, your G2, your Supermassive. And now I'm taking a bit of a gamble with Supermassive there because I do feel like that is a team I have a big question mark over. But it's the Turkish super team. They've even nicked Pora back from us. So, I have big hopes for them. Guild, for me, I was very tempted into putting them into A tier. But then I actually watched a bit of VODs for this tier list specifically because I was like, I want to be nerdy about it. And I went back, after they beat you guys, they didn't beat anybody else. They didn't beat G2 and they didn't beat Acend. Now, if they can't beat G2 and Acend, do I feel like they're going to beat Gambit? Maybe, but I don't know. So I think they are in the B tier, but I still think that Guild is better than Liquid and Giants. Let's not forget that Liquid and Giants, they went through week 2 and they like Giants had a slightly easier, nicer time than Liquid, but Liquid, they like fought, like they were crawling through mud to get through to this stage. Like it was not easy. So unlike Tyler, I cannot put Liquid in the same tier as FPX and G2 and Gambit because I just don't think they're on that level. Otherwise, they would have had an easier time qualifying. Giants, I feel like they might be in a honeymoon phase. I still don't know. I think they're very, very good, but are they going to beat Acend? I don't think so, you know. I think the Giants might have to do a bit of a lower bracket run in this tournament. Oxygen, I love these guys, and I from what I've seen, I think they are a little bit better than they were before at the EMEA playoffs, but I still don't think they are at the level of Guild and above. And then I'm very sorry, Na'Vi, Fireflux, and forZe. I like Na'Vi as well, you know, but just like, for me, it was about if I could put these teams in the same tier as each other. And as I started doing the tier list, I was like, you know, I can't put Guild next to G2 and FPX. But then I can't put Liquid and Giants next to Guild. But then I can't put Na'Vi, Fireflux, and forZe next to them. So it looks bad without context, but I hope, Minnie, I've given you a good like pitch on why I've done this.
I don't think it's that bad, to be honest. I think there's solid theory to both. I don't think they're actually far apart from each other as you might think in a weird way. Theoretically, I know you've got Liquid and
she spread hers out more, right? Like
I had
like mine's more congested. Yeah,
I completely agree with the Acend. They're a tier above. Like if I do one, like it's going to be Ascend's number one. And I think going into the details, I think that Guild and Liquid, even Giants, like it's hard to say with Giants. They had a run. How far is that run going to go? I think that's a big question mark. But I think Guild and Liquid are on the same level as Gambit and Supermassive, to be honest. They're probably not as consistent as FPX or G2 right now. I think Fireflux being in the bottom of both,
I feel so
optimistic.
bad. Yeah,
Fireflux has a bit of momentum. Like they ran through the Turkish.
But they have Lores. I think Lores is where I'm like, I have a bit of a question mark because, like, he is that prodigy kid that Tyler was speaking about. But we haven't seen them in high pressure situations. That's why I put them bottom. Not because I think they're bad, but like we've seen Liquid in high pressure situations and, you know, Giants, Oxygen too. And Oxygen crumbled a little bit. That's why I'm a little bit like conscious about it. But Fireflux, you know, Salah, I'm so sorry if he sees this, he's going to hate me. But purely for me, Minnie, it's the experience. I don't know how you feel or you guys scrimmed against them.
I think we scrimmed against them a couple of times. I think they kicked our heads in one scrim, so I think they're pretty decent, to be honest. I think Lores is fantastic. I think that we trialed him when we were looking for a player where Magnum is currently, and he was the only other serious option with Magnum. Like he's that good. I think, to be honest, like we didn't consider him as seriously as Magnum just because he's Turkish and young. Like he can't speak I can't speak as good English. His English isn't as good as Magnum's. Obviously, no threat to Magnum. That guy's insane. Like he's insane. You know, that team has got lots of good players, and I think the issue I'm going to run into here is that I think that there's just a lot of teams that can beat each other in these things. So it's hard to separate the tiers like this much. Like I think Fireflux and Oxygen's an even game. I think Fireflux could beat those A teams. I don't know why I have this much hope.
Yeah, but I just think, like, forZe, we haven't really spoken about forZe, right? And forZe, like, 6 months ago, everybody was, like, raving about this team and how good they were and how strong they were in scrims. But, I mean, Minnie, what do you think about them now? Because, like, me and Tyler, both of us kind of put them quite low down.
I think forZe, I think they didn't they win the first...
Masters, I believe. I think that was Gambit. Actually, but was it First Strike that they won?
Maybe it was First Strike CIS, and I think that was Gambit mostly screwing up. I think Gambit have come into their own since. I think forZe are definitely maybe underrated a tiny bit here. Like, I don't know if I could put them in a higher tier, but they could definitely beat the teams above. They have some standout players like Saigetsu. Is it Saigetsu, the Sentinel player? I think he's a really solid Sentinel player, and I think Coffee, their race player, is a nutcase who just satchels in like a madman, and he's really fun to watch. And they have good structure. They've been a core as a team for a long time. Like compared to Na'Vi, where Na'Vi's more kind of like building a team fresher. forZe do have that kind of team, that experience together as a team. They've played in high pressure situations, I guess.
Oh, I'm regretting it a little bit now. But actually,
I don't think there's anything to regret. It's just it's like a coin toss almost between some of these teams. It's so difficult.
I want to ask
Liquid,
you. Yeah, sorry, go on, Tyler.
I mean, Team Liquid is Yampy is now their IGL, right? And that just happened in the last qualifier, right? So it's like if he fits in really well as an IGL, they have the firepower to be an A or S tier. Like it really just comes down to very minute details, but yeah, it's very hard.
I think the only thing we're certain of is that Acend are kind of good, and then everyone else is like could be good.
I mean, Acend learned from the best. They learned from Sentinels how to play.
Oh,
so
God,
obviously
here we go. Hey,
I mean,
they spank Sentinels in scrims?
Scrims are scrims. Who cares? The Sentinels would be big chill, and they were big chill in most of those scrims. It's all right.
I think they went 1-1.
Oh, okay. I mean, before we move on to your list, Minnie, I do want to ask you, Na'Vi, I think I'm almost pulling off like vintage EU Valorant knowledge here because no one seems to remember that Dinks was part of SUMN FC. And, you know, it's a shame that you guys didn't make it because it would have been quite cool to go up against one of your former players back in the early days. How do you think he's going to do? You guys, you know, you've coached him before. So Na'Vi with Dinks, are they a realistic threat, you think, to the rest of the teams?
I don't have my hopes set too high for Na'Vi. I love Dinks as a player. I think that when we went through the process of changing him, I was like, just go play in CIS. Like, if you go play in CIS, you'll be a top player. I think that he'll come into your own in that region. And I think he can do that in this team. I think the team, I don't see them as good as Gambit. Like, Gambit's, I think, has both the players and the structure. The structure that they have, I don't know where it comes from. I'm going to presume it's both the IGL and the coach. Their structure is insane. And they have those star pop-off Shadosses and Defos and Nats. Like, their Sentinel was a star player, for God's sake, and they still have like a good duelist and a good like off duelist. I don't know if I see the same from Na'Vi. I think there's going to be a teething period for this team. I'm not sure that the whole roster will be the team going forward in the next kind of 6 months will be the whole roster. I think that Cloud is an extremely good player to build around. He was tearing it up with Durka. And like, I even considered at one point, like, is Cloud and Durka a potential, like, is that a duo that we would want for Fnatic? Like that kind of went through my mind briefly, because he is very good. I think I don't know how to say his name, 7SSK7.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Gus7, that guy's pretty good as well. Like, he's been around for a while. I think they've got good components in the team, and I think it's going to be down to, I presume, Arch is IGLing.
I think so too, yeah.
Arch needs to come into his own here and have a team here that, like, he needs to be the leader. He needs to create a structure. Otherwise, I don't see this team being a big threat right now.
Strong words from Minnie. We'll see. Now let's do your tier list. I think we'll go bottom down because I think it's kind of slightly more difficult to sort out the teams at the bottom. But do you put any of the teams in your D tier?
Wait, am I doing this right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Can we start top down? Because that's easy.
Okay, you want to go top down? That's fine. All right. Who you got in your S tier? Let's start top down.
Acend. Easily the best team in Europe right now. Potentially competing with Sentinels in Berlin. Like, I think if they don't make it deep in Berlin, that's an underperformance from them right now, because they're on a momentum. They look insane. I to be honest, I'm obviously very sad I got this time off from not coaching. I've got some time off, but at the very least, I'll be able to watch these teams, because like I want to watch Ascend more and just learn like what they're doing. Because to me, when I watched them, it looks very much based on confidence and comfortability. Like, it just looks fluid and aim and intuition. You know, like it's a bit different it looks different to how we play, and I think that maybe there's something to learn there. But yeah, they're on a league of their own right now. Like, it's undeniable.
No one else in S.
No one else knows.
All right, A tier.
I'm gonna go left to right. So like left to right would be my strongest. So I think we go with FPX.
What is this, plat chat?
Yeah, sorry, but
no, I'm kidding.
I don't care how many times FPX screws up in big games. They're like the most inspiring team to watch, in my opinion. Like in terms of like strategy, like I think it's always they tell a story when they play. Like it's super clear. Like it's A, B, C, and it's like super clear. When I'm watching the other teams, even tier 1 teams, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what they're doing. Sometimes I watch our games, I'm like, we don't look as clean as Acend, like FPX, sorry. We don't look like we've got that 1, 2, 3 structure. And FPX have got that down. Obviously, there's that big asterisk over them about high pressure games not kind of performing so well. But it is what it is. I mean, they're the longest established roster. They got good results. It's hard to put anyone else there. I think I'd probably put G2 after them. They look pretty decent right now. I think they've made a giantly good decision in making Mixwell switch off a Jet and onto his kind of Sentinel-ish role now, Viper Sentinel. I think that's just like a godsend for them. I think that they should have done that probably a little bit sooner than what they did, but I think they've kind of worked it out and they look kind of good roles-wise. It looks like they actually take strategy seriously now with this roster and have done since making big changes earlier this year. So I have kind of high hopes for them, unfortunately, as a Fnatic member. After that, it gets a little bit trickier. I think that I'd probably put Guild next.
Over Gambit?
Over Gambit, yeah. I think I put Guild next. I think the level in Europe is higher than CIS right now. I think that everyone's still raving on about Gambit's previous performance a long time ago. And I think that I'm not sure if I see Gambit as an overperformance there or not. Like I love Gambit. Like I think they're super. We steal so much stuff from Gambit. We learn so much from them. They push us in practice. They've got star players. They've got great structure. But I'm not sure if they've fully figured it out to the degree in which I think lots of analysts think they have. I also think recently, I know that they use tier 2 tournaments to practice like compositions and stuff, but they haven't looked great from what I've seen in switching some of the roles up and kind of experimentation. It doesn't seem to be that great. Like, even if you're trying stuff, maybe you shouldn't be losing to some of the teams they do. So this is a little bit worrying for me to see that, I guess. So I'd put Guild there. I'd probably put Gambit straight up behind the maybe Liquid. I think Liquids are still up there. I don't think... Okay, so A. Let's go from A. A is FPX, G2, then Guild, then Gambit. And then tack on Liquid at the end.
Okay.
I think that Liquid, going forward, I think that they messed up massively trying to put Scream on KO. I think Sliggy's done one of his classic Sliggy things and like thought that KO was really, really good. And I think KO is really, really good. But I've always just thought Scream was just a duelist, and like every time we played them and Scream was playing duelist, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, like he's on duelist again. Whereas like when he's not on duelist, I'm always a little bit like, okay, we can win this game pretty easily. Like it's fine. So I think that like going forward, if we see him in that duelist spot, I think that they should be okay. I think the roles in their team are a little bit strange right now. I think out of all the tier 1 teams, all the roles are a bit messed up. I think every team has got like some issues going on with their roles, with like people swapping between agents too much. But if Liquid just go forward with comfort with Reyna and Jets, I think they're still going to be really good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's all of your A's, I guess?
That's all my A's. And then because it's so tight, I don't see myself going down to that D tier, really. Like next up, I put Giants easily as the top of B. Yeah. I don't know if we can consider them an A quite yet. They had a really good run. They beat us. They beat Liquid. They stomped Liquid once, but then lost. I got some like hesitations about our game. Like we played super, super crap. So it's like always difficult. Like I want to give them props, but at the same time, it's like, it's harder for me to be objective, I guess. Cause like I saw how we played, you know? So I think they look really good with David P kind of like spearheading that team. And then after that, who would I go? You could almost put every single team after that. Like
every other team in B.
Yeah, every other team. Just mix them up randomly. Like, it doesn't really matter too much.
Wow.
No. Supermassive Blaze, sorry. Supermassive Blaze just after Giants, and then every other T on C.
Okay.
In a kind of random order.
Ooh,
maybe Fire, Flux, forZe. I think Navi maybe are the weakest team coming here, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, wait, no. Navi beat forZe quite a few times. Maybe forZe's the weakest team. I don't know. I think Gambit at the S tier for CIS, and then these other teams are just kind of like, they're struggling right now, I think.
Oh, we'll see. Because when this goes out, I feel by the time this goes out, Navi would have played their opening game. So
yeah, like,
we'll see.
like a massive idiot.
Yeah.
We will see how it goes. But that is Mini's tier list. Again, look a little bit different to me and Tyler. It's a bit of a hybrid, I think, between both of our lists. But we're going to move on to our second segment because it is the playoff special. We want to ask you a few questions, Mini. Maybe do a bit more predictions to see if you're going to look 5-head, which you usually do, or you're going to look silly. But I'm going to start off with a very, very easy question. I feel like you've already answered this, but who is not only qualifying to Berlin, but taking the number 1 seed, winning the entire playoffs, in your opinion?
Oh, Acend, like, obviously.
Acend.
It's like so obvious at this point it's not going to happen. Like, that's the level of just like...
It feels like the same thing in NA, right? Where everyone's just picking Sentinels. Like, just everything else is kind of a coin flip. Like the Sentinels.
But this felt like FPX for the last EMEA playoffs. Like, everybody was like, this is FPX's to lose. Like, something catastrophic.
But Acend has swag, Yinsu. They got that swag.
Oh, no, I'm a huge Acend fanboy. You've seen me wear my Bone Culture a million times, but...
I think the reason why Acend has so many like fans or like they like it just seems like it's destined is because they do have that confident swagger to their play where it does feel like even when their tactics aren't working, they have that X factor. They have these players who can play free-flowing intuition style and just kind of win rounds on their own, like obviously CNED. So I think that like X factor gives people confidence that even if their strategies hit a brick wall, they have the talent to kind of free flow and win anyway.
I feel like Turkish fans are better off just backing Acend now. Like, you know, they've got one. They've got their best. So
they need to they have to get CNED to Berlin because they need it for the viewership.
Break the viewerships, yeah. But yeah, Mini, that sounds like a pretty easy no-brainer for you, Acend. Do you see a world where they don't? Because we know the bracket now, so they could run into a couple of challenges here and there.
So I think the biggest issue, maybe just starting off what we just said, is they haven't been tested or pushed too hard. They've had 2-1 games. They've had a few close matches, but it's not like they've ever played in super high pressure situations where they, this is the next level now of pressure. And so what does this team look like with all their kind of swag and their kind of just like free flowiness? What happens when that gets stifled a little bit by a team? Like in a more pressure situation, like who are the leaders in that team or the cultural architects or whatever you want to call it? Like they're going to kind of like build them up when they're down. Like that's the only thing I could see, like them kind of crumbling a little bit, but I don't see them doing that.
That's why you can't put them on the same level of Sentinels yet, because we've seen Sentinels down. No, I'm just saying that Sentinels, they've shown that they've gotten down at times and they have Shazam there to be like, I got you guys.
Yeah, but they haven't played against CNED.
Okay. You sound like everyone on Twitter. You sound like every person on Twitter, Yinsu. It's like, Sentinels won Reykjavik, but they haven't played CNED yet.
Yeah, okay.
So something like, I know it's their previous roster record Mensa, but they lost 2-0 in the Reykjavik qualifier to Vitality. And to me, I don't really know what, I haven't watched the game, but what is that about? Like, is there anything in this team that shows any kind of crack in? It's a kind of it's not the kind of closest point to make, and maybe not the most vital, but something happened there because we were scared of Acend like back then, like they are now, not scared, but like they were a team back then that like I think people were probably underrating a little bit, and now they're like the Send that we know now.
I think,
and we were like, oh my god, phew, like Vitality beat
Vitality, exactly. Yeah, I think you'd rather play Vitality at the time than Ascend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, going from the destined kings of the castle Ascend to the bottom of the upcomers, the teams that you said, jumble them all up, Flux, forZe, Na'Vi, Oxygen. Of those 4 teams, if you had to pick one of them to be the biggest surprise of the Berlin qualifier, pick one of those 4. Who are you putting your money on?
Flux, I think.
Okay.
I think Flux, yeah. I think Salah as a coach has proved time and time again that he's done well. Like he coached Bonk and
Honk, yeah.
And Bonk and Honk, the classic show. He seems quite with it in terms of like general strategy and just generally winning. Like as like a coach that maybe isn't as established as like your Slickies stuff, I think he's really good. I think as well that the roster has like a bunch of players on that, like decent upcoming players. And I think just generally like their results have been good. I have no reason to believe that this team is like any worse than any other Turkish team. And if anything could prove to be better than the previous kind of tier 1 Turkish teams, just because they got the kind of new spark of firepower, I guess. They're untested to a certain degree. So they have more potential.
Yeah. I also forgot that this is the team that knocked out BBL and Footballist, like both of them. So I'm kind of with Minnie now a little bit. I think that's going to be interesting to see. But moving on from teams to players, we're going to see a stupid amount of talent here. Any tournament with CNED and Screaming is going to be kind of, top of the top. But who are you most looking forward to seeing in terms of player? Who do you think is a player that's going to pop off, outside of the usual suspects?
Outside of usual suspects. This is probably a usual suspect, but for a weird reason. Like, I'm interested in Shao right now because he's been picking up Jet a little bit. I know that it was in their kind of like seeding game, a little bit of a meme game thing, but I think FPX have been thinking about Jet for a while. I think they've seen the success Jet's had in Europe. And unfortunately, Zipan cannot play the UP role. So I think they've been testing Shao's ulping ability. This is kind of my interpretation of what the game I saw that seeding game.
Shao used to be one of the best operators, like early on in the beta. When the FPX first came together, I was like, oh man, they got one of the best operators in Shao, and they have this amazing raised duelist, this entry man in Zipan, and then we really haven't seen Shao on that operator. So if he could play Jet, that gives them just another dimension, right?
Yeah, his Jet was filthy. Oh my goodness.
I'm interested to see what they decide there. I think they're one of the teams that actually switches up. They have a couple of compositional ideas. One of the very few that kind of switches up in tournament play. And I'm kind of interested to see if Shao's they're going to keep Shao on that, because that will just be like the most kind of like interesting thing to watch, I think, from a high level perspective. I think as for kind of underrated players or players to like look out for, I'm going to look directly to that Supermassive Blaze team because they got their roster stacked. Like, I think you could pick almost any player from that Supermassive Blaze team and be like, that's like an underrated player to a certain degree that like could just absolutely pop off. Like Izzy was another player that like just after picking up Durka, I saw his stats and I was like, Jesus, this guy is insane. Like he had like 290 ACS, like that's incredible. And then I saw he was getting picked up by like a good team and I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Like he must be good. Turco is really good. Like he used to be a Sentinel player, I think. And like, it seems like Turkey just breeds like unreal Sentinel players and then they just go off and just play a different role. So he's insane. Russ is insane. Poor is obviously insane. Brave, I know less about, but I think he plays more of the Viper role. Like you could pick almost any player from there and just be like, have fun. I mean, the team's so good that Russ doesn't even play Jet, and that was like the star player for BBL, who was supposed to be the best Turkish team, and he's supposed to be the best Jet player. And I don't think he even plays Jet in this team, does he?
I mean, like you said, any player from Supermassive Blaze is going to be
I'm gonna pick Izzy as my kind of like underrated, like watch out for this guy.
Imagine calling a Turkish player underrated. Imagine. I couldn't.
You know, I mean, like there's going to be lots of viewers from Turkey watching, but the in terms of like analysts and stuff, like I don't think they kind of quite realized this Izzy guy is like this guy's this guy could be competing CNET, like he's insane.
All right. Let's give you the final question for this segment. It's the question that we have to ask all our guests. We have to put the cold hard predictions down on the table. We know you're going to pick Acend to hit Berlin, but who are the other 3 teams that you think will be going on the plane with them over off to Berlin for the Masters tournament upcoming?
I would put FPX and G2, and then that 4th spot I think is like wide open. Again, this will depend. This depends on the bracket, obviously. Like the bracket could cause that to not be true.
G2 and Acend are on the opposite side of the bracket, so I think you got a very, very good shout in G2 and Acend both making it. Yeah. G2,
Acend, FPX, and then I think the 4th place is like between your Gambits and Liquids and Guilds, most dominantly, and then Massive Blaze maybe. And I think the other teams are going to struggle.
Fire Flux.
Giants as an underrated kind of upcoming team too.
So I'm hearing 4 EU teams, you think? No other region is going to be represented?
I think the most likely bet is 4 EU teams.
Whew.
Yeah.
Hey, CNED's there. Turkey's represented. They're all good.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to be proved wrong. I'd love for Gambit to come in and be like, Minnie, you're a fucking idiot. Like, we are like, we're just as good as all the other tier 1 teams.
Yeah.
I'd love for Giants to come in and like continue that run. I'd love for Na'Vi to actually be like the decent team they could be. I'd love for Fireflux to just elevate. I'd love for all these things to happen, but unfortunately they can't all happen. So
we also might get a David P versus G2 second round in that upper bracket if they can beat Oxygen. So that's a spicy one where I know that David P will be doing every tactic he can to upset G2. So that's definitely a match to keep your eye on if that can take place.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I'm sure Minnie, if Redgar was watching this, he's gonna try and prove you wrong. But it's time for us to move on to our last segment. We've spoken a lot about Challengers playoffs, about Berlin, but we got to talk about Fnatic as well. And you also, Minnie, because, it's been a few months now since you quit your full-time job. At the time, I know this kind of popped off on Reddit. Everyone's like, holy moly, the SUMN FC coach has just quit his job because he got picked up by Fnatic. Now, a few months on, how do you kind of think about that decision now? And is kind of being a full-time coach in esports what you expected it to be?
I mean, obviously, like, unbelievable career change. Like, I love it. Like, was the correct decision, like, undoubtedly. Like, we've done well. I enjoy it. I think as for things that I didn't expect, I already worked quite a hard-working job. It was in the creative industry. Like, it wasn't a 9 to 5. I'd go home late almost every day. There were deadlines to hit. But this takes it to a new level. Like, the amount of work that I do, some of it self-imposed, some of it not self-imposed, is like incredible. Like, the hours are insane. So that's the only like potential downside to it all, is like the amount of work that needs to be put into it. But like, at the end of the day, I'm watching people play video games, and I'm trying to teach people how to play video games and how to be better as people. And it's an experience, it's unbelievable.
You guys must have had a lot of offers back in the summer. How do you? Oh, yeah.
Summon. Like you're summoning a demon.
I know, yeah. But I always see it. I'm like, I have to spell it out. It's the SUMN FC days. Why did you guys pick Fnatic?
Yeah, we obviously had a few options to choose between. I think that like there was something back in the day when me and Boaster were like we had a talk with like an agent, because we had no idea what we were doing back then. We were like, we're doing pretty well in these tier 2 tournaments. We can feel the kind of like momentum building to like something decent. And we were kind of like, what do we do? Like, and one of the questions asked was like, well, who would you want to join? Like, who would be your tier, like your number one? And kind of like me and Boaster, without hesitating, both said Fnatic. And I think it's just like their general legacy, I guess. And for me in Counter-Strike, like, watching them, I was there at the start when that Fnatic team was picked up and kind of went on their spree of being the best team in the world.
You're a boomer.
And And then for Boaster, it's like watching that League of Legends where it's like they're like one of the top teams in League of Legends. You had your Reckless there. I had my Flushes and JWs and Crimses. Like, it's kind of just unbelievable. And then obviously, he doesn't like me saying it, but Big Man Karen in the background is always good to have. Boomer 1.6 legend. He's really good to have, just as like he's able to kind of talk to us on a more kind of like eye to eye level, because obviously he's been there, done it. He's one of the best ideas of all time. Like, I'm not gonna boast about it too much. He's quite a modest person, but it's good to have someone like that around, you know. And they're in London, so it's like me and Boaster are in London. They're an English org essentially. It just makes full sense. There was no, you know, we want to win. Like, that's Fnatic's whole thing. Like, we're not like, as much as Boaster might get seen dancing on stream, like, he's not a meme. Like, we are here to be the best in the world, and that's what Fnatic's goals are. And I think our values are aligned. So it just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna say no to Fnatic, right? As in, like, if you had a few offers on the table, I think a lot of players probably wouldn't turn it down. But you know, you guys had your highs, you had your lows. It kind of, getting signed was definitely one of the highs. It's always unfortunate when you can't sort of achieve everything you want to achieve with the original roster. I know that, you know, you guys still feel a little bit of shame about that. Iceland was absolutely incredible for you guys. I think nobody could have foreseen what you've done there. But on to more recent times, and I know we've had a little bit of time now for everything to cool down. And I gotta ask you, because what happened, in your opinion? You know, obviously as a coach, you can't physically get in the game and change things. You had to sort of like stand by and watch. So why do you think you guys fell short this time, when it probably is the first time in your career where everybody expected you to be somewhere?
Yeah, I think that general expectations for us has been really high. I think even in Iceland, like, I was kind of a little bit gobsmacked to the amount of people who were just like, yeah, Fnatic are going to win Iceland straight up. And I was like, wait, I'm not sure of that. Like, I was like, a top 4 would be really good for us. Like, if we get to the final, that's like really good. So I think that, like, maybe expectations from the wider community, like, a little bit too high at times, because obviously we want to win and we're going to be the best. But the level in Europe is just so high that these teams on any given day, apart from Acend right now, who look like they're just a step above at the moment, it's just so close in terms of skill. Like, we were in Iceland and I was watching things back home kind of happening. I was watching these roster moves and I was kind of like, okay, well, when we get back, like, there's some serious competition. We can't like take the foot off the pedal too much. Like, we had to have a break when we got back because we'd been flat out, and ultimately having a bit of a break kind of maybe cost us a tiny bit, but I'd rather have a break than not have a break because it was just unbelievable. So I think there was some faults from me. I think the way we kind of used our time, we had like 2 weeks, I think, to prepare properly. I think that, like, going forward now, we have the experience of like, okay, what does 2 weeks after a major tournament look like in terms of restructuring? Because in Iceland, we were kind of forced to a certain degree to we were learning what our team was. Our roles in Iceland were messy. Like, we had people playing Sky on every single map. We want like Sky wasn't even as good as Sober back then. We were just doing it just for comfort reasons. There was just a bunch of stuff we wanted to work out, and you kind of come back home and you're like, let's work all this stuff out. But like, we only had 2 weeks to work it all out, so it wasn't enough time. And then going forward from that, I guess it's just like our inexperience a little bit cost us at certain games. Like, teams will work out something that works quite well, and then we kind of take a little bit too long to adapt to those things. But I think overall we've seen the highs from each individual. We've seen what they're capable of right now. We've seen, like, Durka at times looks like one of the best Jets in the world. I think Magnum at times looks like the best Sentinel in Europe. I think Boaster at times looks like the best IGL in the world. Like, every single player, even like Mystic is like keeps just like elevating as well. Like he was always like mine and Boaster's kind of like project to build up. And like in Iceland, he proved it. And then like in this recent qualifier, he proved it again. Like he can be unbelievable. And Doma's had a bit of an identity issue in terms of like his role. Like, he used to be the Raze, and bringing in Durka, it was kind of like a bit of a teething period for him. Like we've found now that Sky works really well for him, and I'm kind of fleshing out that role for him going forward. So I think we've kind of discovered now what will work and what won't work. And going forward, I'm like super confident that like we'll take this and as a learning experience and just like build off of it. Like we lost, we played bad. Who cares? Like we were still there to qualify for champions, and we're going to qualify for champions, and we're going to do well in champions. Like that's my kind of like level of like confidence going forward.
I love it. And who better, the redemption story, Tyler, when they get to champions and they get their revenge on Sentinels in the final. It's written in the stars. Then nobody's going to remember Sentinels won at Reykjavik. They're going to be like, they lost the champions.
The sad thing is I could actually see that happen. Well, the sad thing is like I could actually like picture that in my head and like Boaster with the trophy and he's crying. I can actually picture that, which is the scariest thing of all, Yinsu. It's the scariest thing of all that I can't even make a joke about that because it can actually happen.
Yeah, and I back the boys as always. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you, Tyler, for keeping your NA superiority to a minimum. Yep, that's got to be the least we've seen from you.
I have a few more weeks. I have a few more weeks to Berlin.
And thank you to Minnie for joining us as well and giving us your wisdom and predictions. So we shall see if your European supremacy does reign true in about a week now by the time this episode comes out. And I've been your host as always. Thank you so much to everybody for watching at home. And if you enjoyed this week's episode, leave us a comment, drop a like and subscribe, and we'll see you back with another episode of Showstopper next week.
Fire Flux.
Right, shameless self-promotion time. Cut this in. I'm going to be streaming this week, so go watch my stream.
Oh my god.